Hello, my name is Zach Kazan. I'm the managing editor of Worn and Wound. This is the Time on Screen podcast, a podcast where we look at movies and watches and where those things intersect. It's our big end of the year episode, which we've done for the past 2 years. I'm really happy to be joined by Kat Shoulders again for this episode. Kat, how's it going?
Good. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, this is a fun episode. I think that, I don't know, there's something about like being a movie fan, a cinephile that is, we're inclined to make lists. We're inclined to like at the end of the year, look back and think about the year that was. And so it's always fun to just kind of like take stock of the year. See what our favorite movies were at the end of everything.
Yeah. Is it bad that I'm more excited about this episode than I was our end of year watch podcast?
I don't think so. I think, movies were meant to be consumed, in mass. We're meant to like enjoy a lot of movies. Watches are different, like we're weird, like in that we, own and wear a lot of watches. Most people just, they have one or two watches and that's it if they have a watch at all. So movies are fundamentally different in terms of like evaluating, like the output over the course of a set period of time.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. This is, ostensibly a somewhat of a watch podcast. So let's do a quick wrist check. What are you, what are you wearing today?
Speaking of watches, I am wearing my white dial Omega Speedmaster today. I've had this on all weekend. It's been honestly very hard to take off. It's just like, I've said this before, but Omega just really, really nailed this design and dial, and it's just a cool freaking watch.
Yeah, no, it's a really good one. Probably my favorite Speedmaster overall. I've owned a bunch of Speedmasters. What's that?
So join the club.
Yeah, no, I mean honestly, like it's crossed my mind. I was going to say like I've owned a handful of Speedmasters over the years, and like they never last in my collection.
Same. I think I've owned like 5 Speedmasters in my watch collecting lifetime.
We made a bet on a podcast recently. I don't know if it's aired yet, whether or not, I think it has by this point, if you're listening to it, whether you'll own the white Speedmaster at the end of 2025.
Yeah.
We'll see. I think you probably will. I think
I will.
Yeah. Well, time will tell.
2025 Cat's going to be different, y'all. I'm going to be so different next year.
We're going to do a New Year's resolution episode, I think, to see if, maybe yours will be like, don't flip watches. I don't know. Famous last words.
What are you wearing?
I'm wearing my my Fears Brunswick Aurora. I put it on I put it on a strap the other day.
I like that strap on it.
Yeah, no, this is David Lane design.
It's like a green.
But yeah, no, it's a really nice match for the dial. I love this watch. It's one of my favorite pickups of 2024 for sure. Really proud to own it.
So really beautiful. So good. Yeah, I like that. That watch typically I've seen a lot on blue straps, which definitely there's a lot of blue hues in that mother of pearl. But I like when you just showed your wrist up, the green strap pulls out like those green tones in it too.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I love that watch. Yeah. It's just perfect.
Great. All right. So 2024 in movies. Before we get into our list, we're going to do top fives, individual top 5 lists. Let's start the conversation just by talking about 2024 in general. What did you think of this year as a movie year? Was it hard for you to come up with 5 movies that you like this year?
This year was good. I think last year was a really strong year in movies, and I think this year was too. And there's still we'll talk about it here in a little bit, but there's still several I haven't even seen yet that I think are heavy hitters, and there's a few more still to come before quite the end of the year. But no, I was really surprised that we had such a good movie year, and I'm excited and hopeful that this will just be a continuing trend again, and we won't have the bad COVID years, or writer strike years probably again, because that really was a bummer that we just didn't have so many movies for a long time.
Yeah, there were a lot of movies this year. I don't know that I feel like it was a strange year for movies. So I love to. The other question I was going to ask you is like how you saw most of these movies. Did you go to the theater? Did you watch them at home?
Question.
I love going to the movies, and I felt like there wasn't as much at the theater for me this year.
Yeah, that's a good point, Zach.
I've got the 2024 box office in front of me. Do you know what the highest grossing movie this year?
Oh, I think was it Was it the Inside Out? Was
It
that
was.
the
It was Inside Out
Yeah,
2.
okay.
I'll just go through the top 10 here. So the
Yeah.
Inside Out 2, Deadpool and Wolverine, Despicable Me 4,
Mm.
Moana 2, which just came out a few weeks ago, which is a huge movie.
Yeah.
Dune Part 2, Godzilla, Kong, The New Empire, Wicked,
Mm.
Kung Fu Panda 4, Venom: The Last Dance, that's the 3rd Venom movie, and
Wow.
Beetlejuice, which is, of course, a reboot. So,
These are
like,
all kid movies.
exactly, they're all kid movies for the most part, and they're
Yeah.
all franchise IP movies. I'm
Oh
looking
my
through the
gosh. I
list,
didn't
I
even
don't
realize there was
see.
4 Despicable Me's. Wow.
Yeah,
Congrats,
that's
Steve
a lot
Carell.
of Despicable Me. So, like, I find as a, as an adult, as an, who likes, movies made for adults, like, it was hard to find movies for me in the theater this year because
Kids
it
really
was.
had their year this year,
Yeah,
though.
this is a big year for kids and a big year for franchises. Obviously,
Yeah.
Marvel had a big comeback with Deadpool and
Yeah.
Wolverine, this year. I don't know if that's gonna come up. It's not gonna come up come up on
Uh,
my list.
no,
Um,
mine either.
yeah, I mean, I thought that was just an absolutely
Yeah.
terrible movie. So, like, there's some stuff on here that's just, like, flat out not good. I thought Beetlejuice was bad. I like the Venom movies. I thought this one was
I didn't even
not
see
good.
Venom.
Um, Dune Part 2 will factor into the conversation
Yeah.
as we get
Yeah,
going
for
here, but,
sure.
um,
I did say I like the Inside Out first movie. Maybe I need to give the second one a watch. Maybe it's just as good. I thought the first one was pretty clever.
yeah, Inside Out's very, and the sequel is, like, they're highly regarded movies,
Yeah.
but, they are, you know, children's
That's
movies or families
interesting to
movies to be.
hear. I'm surprised that, like, Twisters wasn't even on that list because I feel like that was a big summer sort of blockbuster.
Twisters is 14 on the list.
Yeah, that's
So there is
crazy.
some good stuff. I'm looking at those. There's some good stuff between, like, 10 and 20. You've got the Alien movie at 16,
Mhm.
Twisters, Gladiator 2, if that's your thing, is number 11.
Mm.
Um, Quiet Place Day 1 is at number 18. So, like, there is, like,
Well, yeah.
some good stuff, but, like, as far as, like, mass entertainment goes, this was, like, big year for IP, big year for kids movies, and that to me is a little concerning if as someone who likes original
Yeah.
storytelling, and so I had to really search for movies this year. Like, I saw a lot
Yeah.
of, a lot of the movies I saw this year that factor into my list, or, factored into my honorable mentions, or movies I checked out on demand, or,
Yeah.
VOD, or, picked up on streaming once
I
they.
will say it's been really disappointing this year. So me and Jonathan, we signed up for like the Regal thing where you can
Mhm.
go and you can see unlimited movies. You pay like a monthly fee, and we had really high hopes when we bought this, and this was probably back in the spring, and then we just didn't really use it because the movies that they would come out, and I don't know if you experienced this, Zach, but like within a week's time, they were already out of the theater. Some of the
Yeah.
movies, like if you didn't catch it in that first week or two, it's gone. It's already now on streaming, and you've missed a theatrical release. And that was just like such a bummer because there were so many movies I wanted to see, but because of timing or maybe my travel, I just couldn't. And then it was like, oh, it's already out of the theater. Or some honestly were like, I think there were some that were in the theater for a week and they were out. And I
Oh,
was just
yeah.
like, what?
Yeah, the distribution this year has been very strange, and, it's funny you brought up Regal. So, Regal, for a long time, was kind of like the dominant chain in my part of New England, and I had, like,
Mhm.
2 Regals, within, like, 15 minutes drive of me. They both closed this
Oh,
year.
wow.
So, I have one, like, kinda like larger multiplex theater with an IMAX screen, which is a very nice theater within about, like, a 20-minute drive, and there's the independent theater
Mhm.
in Concord, New Hampshire, Red River Theaters, which I love, and I'm a huge fan of, which is, like, right down the street from me. But because those Regals closed, Red River, which is a nonprofit and, like, needs to, like, they really rely on, like, ticket sales,
Mhm.
to stay afloat. Like, they started booking bigger movies. Like, so they have, like, Wicked now, and, like,
Wow.
they had, Deadpool and Wolverine this
Yeah.
summer, where in previous years, other years, even, like, during COVID times, they would have, like, indies, documentaries,
Yeah.
foreign films, like, this kind of stuff that, like, I really wanna see at a theater like that.
Yeah.
So, like, it's been a weird distribution year that, like you
Yeah.
said, there's a bunch of stuff that I haven't had a chance to see yet that would probably factor into my list that I won't
Mhm.
see until January or even February, just because of the way things are distributed now. And, my personal circumstances, I just happen to be in a part of the country where chain theaters are closing, and the
Yeah.
great nonprofit theater kind
Oh,
of
it's
down the street
sad.
has had to book,
Yeah.
big movies to kind of like stay afloat, which
Yeah.
again, I just have some conflicted feelings about.
Yeah, no, totally, you should. Yeah, it's a bummer to hear. There was a movie that came out, I think during the summer, and it was around the same time as Deadpool and some other movies, and I think it just didn't quite last, but, have you heard of that Cuckoo? I think
Yeah, I saw
it's like a
Cuckoo.
Swedish or
Yep.
Norwegian. It was like literally it came in the theaters here, and it was here for a week, and then it was gone, and I was so bummed because I wanted to watch it, still haven't, but, um, yeah, it was, like, in the theater for a week, and then, like, "Alright, well, it's already out."
Yeah, I did catch that one in the theater. I try to catch horror movies in the theater when I can.
Yeah.
That one came out, I think, around the same time as Longlegs, and I think it sort of
Oh,
like
okay.
suffered from being,
Mm,
it was just kind of like muffled in the conversation, because
yeah,
Longlegs took up so
yeah.
much
Was it
oxygen.
decent?
I didn't care for Cuckoo.
Okay,
I
alright.
thought it was not
Cuckoo.
entirely successful, but like it's one of those movies that like I'm glad to have seen it in the theater. I'm
Yeah,
glad to
yeah,
have been
yeah.
able to have that experience, even if it wasn't, even if I didn't entirely enjoy it. It wasn't like offensively bad or anything. Just
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I like the experience of movies, even if I don't always like them, I like just experiencing them, firsthand.
yeah.
But,
And I'm looking at my list. I did see all but one movie on my top 5 list I did see in the theater and had, like, a really great, like, theater, experience. So, like, that does still happen,
yeah,
thankfully. Just I feel like, maybe this year, those experiences were fewer and farther in
yeah.
between. We're looking back on, the Barbenheimer year, which was
Mhm.
just like that's like a
Mega.
once in a generation kind of experience where you have a, movie like Oppenheimer and a theater
Mhm.
experience like Barbie, kind of like literally, same day.
Yeah,
And before that we had Top Gun, the year before, and
that's
Top
right.
Gun Maverick. And so like there wasn't a movie like that for me
Mhm. Yeah,
this year. There wasn't like a big kind of like tentpole movie that everyone could kind of like get behind,
yeah.
except for Inside Out 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine, which is just like not really my bag, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Wasn't a Deadpool, fan myself. It
yeah,
was okay. It was okay. I won't trash it, but, yeah, it is what it is.
I'll trash it. I think it was bad. I thought it was a straight up bad movie. Same joke over and over again. Hard to
Yeah,
watch. Not a fan.
yeah.
Um, you want to get into our lists, our
Let's
top
do
five
it.
lists? All right.
Yeah.
Why don't you kick us off? What you got at number 5?
Oh, number 5. Okay, we're starting from the bottom.
Oh yeah, we got to work our way to the
This
top
is
for sure.
hard because, like, I had a few that kind of, like, fought each other for number 5, but I'm gonna start with Wicked. So, I am a huge Broadway fan, love the musical, have seen it multiple times, in theater, and, yeah, I liked the movie. I enjoyed it. I cried. I thought it was great. Cynthia Erivo is fantastic. I think I just looked the other day, she's almost has an EGOT at this point. She's an
Hmm.
Oscar away, which is definitely gonna happen, I would say, in the next 5 years. I'm calling it. She's gonna get an Oscar for something. Um, but yeah, I thought it was a fun movie. I'm actually surprised that Wicked actually wasn't on that list yet, but maybe it's still racking in, uh, you know, tickets and sales.
It's number 7
Oh,
on the
it's number
list.
7. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I
Yeah.
was gonna say I thought it performed pretty well in theaters, but, yeah, it's not a movie you can take seriously. Don't go into the theater thinking that. You need to like musicals if you're gonna watch it. Don't watch it if you're not a musical fan. There's a lot of singing involved, and, but anyway, I thought it was a fun movie. I thought John Chu did a great job directing. He's done other things like In the Heights, which I'm also a fan of with
Yeah, and the Heights is very
Lin-Manuel.
good.
Um, and yeah, for a musical, it had everything I sort of wanted. It was very fantastical, big production. I kind of wish that this had come out in the summer. I feel like it would have been a really fun summer movie. But yeah, holiday time, they nailed it with I think Thanksgiving release, which is when it came
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
I want to say, but yeah, that's my number 5.
I haven't seen Wicked yet. I will see it. I mean, Wicked is going to be nominated for Best Picture, and I always try to see every movie that is nominated for Best Picture. So,
Yeah.
so I'll definitely see it. I'm not like I mean, I love The Wizard of Oz,
Hmm.
from the time I was a child, but I'm not. Um, w- the Wicked phenomenon kind of
Yeah.
like passed me by, so it's not
Yeah.
like a thing that I have any sort of like attachment to.
Yeah.
I agree with you on Cynthia Erivo. She's fantastic. Everything I've seen her in, she's really great.
Yeah.
um, I'm a little scared of some of the reviews from critics I like who kind of they criticize certain things about like like the look of the movie. I've heard that
Mm.
it's like the CGI is like not particularly good.
Really? I
Yeah,
thought I
but
thought it was okay. I think it's a movie I actually wanna go watch it again because I'm a person that, I I I take in the acting first, but then I can go back and watch a movie and then look at the set design, look at the
mhm,
costumes, and yeah, they nailed it with set and costumes and production and choreography, and there's a lot to see, and it's a movie that I almost feel like you have to watch multiple times.
yeah. Um, is it, did people sing in your theater? I know that's a big
No.
okay. I
No,
know
but
that
I
was
will
like a
say that Regal I saw it in a Regal theater, and they had a disclaimer that there was no singing. You would be kicked out. And there were little kids, but yeah, no one sang. It was a nice watch. Yeah.
there's a story in the New York Times the week that the week the movie came out about how, like, to sing or not to sing
Yeah.
in Wicked, and people
No.
had very strong opinions, and,
Yeah.
it looks like now theaters are doing, like, sing-along screenings, like, specifically for
That's
people who
crazy.
wanna
Yeah.
sing, so I will definitely not be going to one of those
Boy,
screenings, when I do
no.
eventually see Wicked, but, um, yeah, it's part 1 of 2, right? This so that, like, it
Yep.
ends on a, on a cliffhanger,
Yep. Yeah,
it's
like it would when you see the shows and when you see a Broadway show, there's a usually an intermission and yeah, I think the next part is coming out, next November, so
yeah,
have to wait a whole year.
yeah. Okay, great. Number 5, Wicked. My number 5 is A Different Man, directed by Aaron Schimberg. This is an independent film. It
Yeah.
screened at the Sundance Film Festival early in 2024. Stars Sebastian Stan and Adam Pearson, who's an English actor who has a facial disfigurement.
Mhm.
And this movie is about Sebastian Stan plays a man with a similar facial disfigurement who then goes through I won't spoil it, but like he's cured of that facial disfigurement, and then he meets the Adam Pearson character,
Yeah.
and his life is completely kind of like upset. And
Mhm.
it's described. Most people describe it as like a very very black comedy.
Mhm.
It turns into a pretty bracing uh, psychological thriller by
Oh,
the end of it.
wow.
It's a really really fascinating movie. The overarching theme of the movie is uh, basically like this character played by Sebastian Stan gets everything he wants in life, and then has to like
Mm.
deal with the repercussions of
Yeah.
that. And so it's like a
Wow.
kind of like fascinating, sort of like um, like moral kind of thorny moral issue sort of movie. Great performances by Sebastian Stan and Adam Pearson. They really
Yeah.
carry it. I was particularly charmed by Adam Pearson, who's just not an actor I was familiar with, but apparently he's done a lot of stage work,
Oh,
and
wow.
he's just great. Like once he
Yeah.
kind of like comes on the scene, like the movie kind of like changes gears and
Mhm.
it becomes something else, and it's just really great. I was kind of like catching up on 2024 movies that I had missed in
Yeah.
theaters, and I rented this and watched it very late at night, and was very glad that I did. It kept my attention during an hour of the evening that I'm usually dozing off watching something. So,
That's awesome.
highly recommend A Different Man if folks are interested in a really original, kind of like psychological horror thriller black comedy. It's great.
Yeah, no, I didn't realize it got dark, so I'm excited to watch it now.
Yeah.
That one's on my list for sure, and I'm glad to see, Sebastian Stan doing some of these, I feel like he is a like, an underrated actor in a lot of
Mhm.
ways, and, sometimes being a part of these Marvel movies, it puts you in a category, and I'm glad to see him kind of branch out from that a little bit.
Yeah, no, he's spending his Marvel capital pretty wisely, I think. He was in A Different Man this year. He was also in The Apprentice. He played
Yeah,
Donald Trump
yeah.
in The Apprentice, which is a performance he was
Have you seen
widely
that one?
praised for. I did not
I haven't seen it
see
either,
The
yeah.
Apprentice. That was one that played in theaters here like very briefly,
Yeah.
and I just didn't get a chance to see it. But it's on my list. I really like Sebastian Stan.
Yeah,
I like him in the Marvel, in the MCU, and I like him outside of it as well. He's just a really
yeah.
talented actor.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah. What's your number 4?
All right. So my number 4, and I just want to say these are my favorite. I'm not saying they're the best. So number 4 is Long Legs. This movie, it's like it's weird for me because like I can't even say it's like that good, but it left me with such a reaction, and I think that to me is what I look for in a movie is like to give me some sort of visceral reaction when I leave the theater. And this movie did it, and it so as this is a horror movie, it follows an FBI agent as she is looking for following a serial killer case, and sort of takes an unexpected turn during the middle of the movie, and you find out some things about her past. And dude, Nicolas Cage is so weird in this movie,
Hmm.
so freaky. Like, I think I had like nightmares about his character, literally.
Yeah.
He nailed it, and he's such a creep and weirdo. And there's some scenes that are like so haunting in this movie. And again, it just left me with a reaction like, oh my gosh, I didn't know what to think when I left the theater. Again, I don't know. I won't say it's the best horror movie out there, but it certainly is one that I think you should watch, especially if you like sort of like cult horror movies. This fits in really well. It takes sort of elements from a lot of different movies that I like and sort of puts them all in a film together. And yeah, I think it worked. And it was underrated, I think, in a
Hmm.
way this year.
Yeah, I like Long Legs quite a bit. It would be kind of like in the honorable mention category
Yeah.
for me. I thought Nicolas Cage's the character that he creates is really fantastic. I didn't love like so the movie without giving anything away. The movie kind of takes so like a certain like flight of fancy, I guess you'd say, like towards the end. Like it's very kind of
Hmm.
um for most of the movie, it's like it feels very grounded and real, and
Yeah.
then it's not.
Yeah.
Um, and I have mixed feelings
I
about
agree
that
with you. Yeah.
decision. But it's really well made. And I mean the Nicolas Cage performance is just going to go
Hmm.
down in history as one of the best. I think that this movie was hurt in like the kind of like public conversation around it because it had so much hype going into it as
Yeah.
like the scariest movie ever made.
Yeah.
And like that was literally part of like the marketing,
Hmm.
and it's not the scariest movie ever made
No.
in my
No.
opinion. In fact, I think that it's sort of like asking you to sort of like confront the idea of what a scary movie is
Hmm.
in certain ways. And I have a take on like the long legs character that like he's not actually scary. Like as you get further into the movie, he's actually just a loser who is like just a creep who likes glam rock, and he's not
Yeah.
scary. And like that's sort
Mm.
of what the
Yeah.
movie sort of like it becomes about. And
Yeah.
um I really like that. But I think a lot of people who were maybe expecting something that's just, like a new Silence of the Lambs or something,
Yeah.
were looking for that and didn't see it and were
Yeah.
kind of like wrong
I
footed by it.
agree. I did not like the marketing. I felt like they certainly hyped it up to be a lot scarier than it was. But nevertheless, it definitely left me with a reaction, and it's certainly a movie I've thought about, and I've only seen it once. And I've
Mhm.
thought about this movie a dozen times since watching it. So I felt like it made the list.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
has some, like, really, like I've also only seen it once, but it has some imagery in it that, like,
Yeah.
like, you won't be able to shake. Like, it
Mhm.
definitely, has a very deliberate design. It's directed by Osgood Perkins, who's the
Yeah.
son of, Anthony Perkins, who, of course, is famous, for, among other things, being in Psycho,
Mhm.
one of the most legendary, like, horror movies ever. So, like, there's, like, some real kind of, like,
Yeah.
horror thriller, like, DNA,
Yeah.
happening in this movie. And
It's the kind of movie that if I was a kid and I saw a glimpse of, like, in the house, which I did growing up, it's one of those movies that would have freaked me out, I think, as a kid. Yeah.
yeah, and then you would have watched it later as an adult and been like, "Oh, this guy's just a burnout loser," and, I've probably met this guy, and he's, like, not
Yeah.
that big a deal. There's
Yeah.
this scene my favorite scene in Longlegs is where the Longlegs character is, he's in, like, a hardware store,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he's, like, shopping for something, and, like, the reaction that the cashier has to
Yeah.
Longlegs, like, for me, is, like, the key to the whole movie because
Yeah,
she's, like,
she's
not
not
scared of
not
him, and it's
Mhm.
just, like
He's just like a weirdo.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I really I have a lot of admiration for Longlegs. I think that's a
Yeah.
really, really good pick.
Yeah. What's your number 4?
My number 4, also kind of in the horror genre, my number 4 is The Substance,
Ooh.
with Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley. I saw this movie. This was one of my like great movie theater experiences of
Mhm.
2024. I saw this movie in a packed house on a Friday night, and I think it was full of people who did not have any idea what they were getting into, because it is a true kind of like body horror
Yeah, I can't. I
experience. Like
yeah.
it gets gross.
I can't do it. That's why I haven't
Yeah.
watched it.
But it has like a lot of interesting things to say. The movie's really about how the entertainment industry kind of like chews up women, like almost literally, as they
Mhm.
age. It's a really interesting concept. This a fantastic Demi Moore performance, kind
Heard,
of at the
yeah.
center of it. Just really like physical performance. It's gross. Like you need like a strong stomach
Mhm.
to watch The Substance. The grossest thing though, I will say, is not like the typical body horror. It's Dennis Quaid eating shrimp. There's a scene where he's eating shrimp, and it's just like the way it's filmed is absolutely horrifying.
Disgusting.
Yeah. But yeah, I love The Substance. It's various times throughout the year I thought like this is like maybe my number one movie, and like I could like make a case for it as being
Really?
number one.
Wow.
I really, really liked it. And it ends in this, it has like one of the best endings of any movie this year. And that's actually a theme throughout like all these movies on my list have what I would describe as like great
Mm,
endings. And The Substance just has like an all-timer. It's really cool. Did you see The
yeah.
Substance?
No, because I
Oh, because
don't
it's
do
so gross.
gross.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
do gross, like, gory I can't. Like, I get like, I'll vomit.
Yeah. Fair
So,
enough.
I read reviews where people were, like, passing out watching this movie or literally getting sick and having to leave the theater, and so that was enough for me to be like, "Yeah, not my movie." I could try to watch it at home and maybe, like, fast forward through things, but at that point, then why are you kinda watching it?
I mean, I will
Um,
say like there's a case to be made for that. Like
okay,
especially as we talk about like the finale of the movie, which I'm not giving anything
okay,
away to say, like the finale is
yeah,
like, kind of like the peak of the grossness. Like at that point, once you get a little taste of it, you could
yeah,
probably kind of like you could probably
yeah,
be done with it. Like if it's not, to your taste. Like there's an element of like, okay, I get it,
yeah.
to some of this stuff. But
We're talking about endings here, and I'm looking at my 5 movies. 2 of them don't really have an ending because they're, like, part of a say
mhm.
Wicked, and then we'll probably both have Dune 2, Part 2 on our list, which, again, sort of abruptly ends in a way to the story will continue. Longlegs did not have a good ending. I only have 1 movie on here that, like well, maybe 1 and a half that that had a decent ending to it.
Okay.
But that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's not something I kind of considered. But yeah, the ending of a movie is obviously super important,
Oh,
and
for sure.
it's
Yeah.
usually what your last impression is when you walk out of the theater.
It's tough to land the plane, Like
Yeah.
some of these movies are, very complicated. Like The Substance is 2.5 hours long, Like
Wow.
you sit there in the theater and like if you don't yeah, if you don't have like an ending that is like memorable, that you kind of like walk out of the theater and you ask yourself like, what did I just spend my
Yeah.
evening doing? So like you gotta, yeah, no, and the ending's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am excited that Demi Moore is back, though. I've always been a fan, and, I hope we see her in more movies. But I've heard good things about her from The Substance, which is
Yeah, no,
just a cool name of a movie, The Substance.
yeah, it's a really cool
Yeah.
concept. The movie has it has like elements of science fiction, as well, and of course, there's like a lot of commentary about the entertainment industry. But yeah, no, Demi Moore's great. She's going to be in the Oscar conversation this year. I don't know if she'll get
Yeah.
nominated, but like she'll definitely, you'll see her, you know, walking the red carpet at all the
Yeah.
award shows and everything, for
Yeah.
sure. I'm glad she's back too. She's great.
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool.
What's your number four? Oh
Or
no,
number
three. I
3, I
think
think
is
we're
it.
on
We were
3.
yeah.
So my number 3 movie is a movie I did not watch in theaters. This was a Netflix release. This is Woman of the Hour, a movie directed
I
by
really
Anna
thought you were gonna say
Kendrick.
Hot Frosty there when you said Netflix release.
Scared you?
Yeah.
No, sadly, I haven't watched Hot Frosty yet. I'm saving that for for Christmas Eve.
Yeah. Save it for 4th of July. You might as
Yeah.
well.
Um, so this is a movie that I believe is Anna Kendrick's directorial
Mhm.
debut, and it follows a woman in the 1970s as a wave of murders make headlines. I'm just reading the description here. A young woman that is aspiring to be an actress is sort of paired together with a serial killer on a dating show in the 70s, and this is a true story, which
Yeah.
also makes this just absolutely insane. But there's a commentary on this throughout this movie about women, and obviously being targets, and sort of the way we think, and obviously charming young men that can just get by serial killers
Mhm.
because they're charming, and no one bats an eye, which is pretty crazy. It's a story I was not familiar with, and so I thought for her first movie, she absolutely killed it. I thought this was a great film. I think that it was probably worthy of a theatrical release, but
Mhm.
Netflix picked it up, and it was a great and surprising watch for me. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I like serial killer movies and shows, and so this was up there for me.
Yeah, this is your second serial killer movie in a row,
Yeah.
on this list. I don't count Wicked as a serial killer movie. Um, Maybe in part 2, I don't know.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I like this movie quite a bit, and I agree. This movie would have played really well in theaters. It has
Yeah.
some really, like, very, like, tense moments. Like, there's a scene in a parking lot that
Yeah.
is, like, among the, most, like, suspenseful, kind of, like,
Yeah.
bracing scenes in a movie I've seen this year. And, yeah, Anna Kendrick's great. Like,
Mhm.
congratulations to her. Like, first movie out of the gate, directorial debut. So really, really,
Yeah.
strong film.
I thought also, like, Tony Hale in this movie did a great job.
Yeah,
He's sort of the host of
very
the
smarmy.
game show. Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
just, yeah, it was a really good movie. It made my top 5 this year.
yeah, and it's another movie. I mean, another theme I think that's emerging is movies about like the like horrible things women have to deal with just like for being alive. Like I'm looking
Yeah.
at my list and I see other movies in that. I've got, like, The Substance fits in. There's some couple movies I'll talk about in a minute
Yeah.
that deal with that, and certainly this movie is in that conversation
Yeah.
as well. So yeah, that's a really really good pick.
Mhm.
Um, Certainly worth watching if you have Netflix, which I
Mhm.
mean, doesn't everyone have? It's Netflix is like
Yeah.
a public utility at this
Yeah,
point.
at this
Everyone
point,
just
yeah.
has
You should.
it.
Alright, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is Dune 2.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the first Dune. I love the second one as well. I think it's maybe in terms of like technical filmmaking craft, it's probably even better
Yeah.
than the first one. Um, it's the Dune 2 is quite a bit more complex, I think, thematically than the first
Mhm.
one. You see the character of Paul Atreides kind of like he's not the hero like at the end of this movie. Like he kind of you start to see like that character turn in a
Mhm.
way that I think people who like were not familiar with the book and like the story of Dune were probably not ready for,
Mhm.
honestly. And I got the sense that people were kind of coming out of this movie a little confused about
Yeah.
what this story actually is. I was really satisfied coming out of it because it felt like they were it was true to the spirit of the books.
Yeah.
Because this is a story basically of a like a holy war,
Mhm.
essentially, and it's very clear that's what we're heading for.
Yeah.
In like whatever the next Dune movie is, I guess they're going to do Dune Messiah
Mhm.
at some point. So, um, you talk about endings and like how like Dune 2 is sort of like it ends abruptly, does end abruptly, but I thought it does so in like a really
Yeah.
effective way
Yeah.
as
Keeps you
you
excited.
see, yeah, like as you see like Paul kind of like
Mhm.
take on this like new dynamic as a
Yeah.
character that's like not as wholesome, necessarily as we saw him in the first film.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, he's faced with his own choices, and, knows what's coming, and,
Mhm.
yeah, again, I think we can talk about this a little bit more in detail because this is actually my number 2 pick on my list, but I agree with you. I think this movie was much more exciting than the first Dune. We also saw some really great characters. I think, Austin Butler did an incredible job, in this film, as well as, Florence Pugh, which I kinda thought Florence was actually a little underplayed,
Mhm.
in a way for me, in this movie. But I love Austin's performance, and I love the battle scene, and it kind of going into like this monochromatic color, I mean, maybe even black and white in a way. But
Yeah, it's
um,
literally it goes black and white
yeah,
for a minute there, yeah.
yeah, it's so cool, and this is a movie that I've watched far more times than the first one. I just think that visually it's better. There's just so many great scenes. They ride worms in this in
Yeah,
this
the
one.
worm riding stuff is so good. Like,
Yeah,
that's the like, so that was, like, the big question, like, going into the movie is how Denis Villeneuve would recreate that. Because at some point,
yeah,
this character rides a worm. So,
hmm,
like, how do you show that on screen in a way that's, like, that kinda, like, matches, the aesthetic of the first movie and and, like, I think they really nailed it. Like, it's, like, a
yeah,
really thrilling scene. but, like, all the imagery in the movie, though, is so good. Like,
So
one of my
yeah.
favorite, like, moments in the movies, like, very early on, you see um, I'm blanking on the name of the clan, but, like, the antagonists, like, they're just kinda, like, floating
Oh, yeah.
in their, their suits, like, down
Mhm.
a or, like, up, like, a cliff, and it's, like,
Yeah.
it's so surreal, and, like,
Yeah, and
you
they're
really realize
quiet.
that.
It's so
Yeah.
quiet too. Yeah.
Yep. Like, you really realize that you're in the hands of someone who, like, understands the books, I think, when
Yeah.
you see something like that. So, um, yeah, no, Dune 2's great. I hope they keep making these, like, there's so
Yeah.
much, like, material in the Dune universe.
Really?
Like, it gets really, really crazy and, like, really psychedelic and wild, but, like, I kinda hope
Okay.
they continue
So,
to
I
make
have to
this.
ask, and I'm just not familiar, is Dune a series or is it a book?
So it's a series of
Okay.
books, and the people who are and I went through most of it when I was in like high school. I was like a huge nerd, and like I just kind of like devoured the Dune books. They're
Yeah.
very complicated and very dense, and to like to the point where watching the movies, I kind of like had forgotten like a lot of the
Mm.
details of the plot.
Okay.
Um, but it kind of comes back to you like as you watch the movie and absorb it. um it gets trippy, like so they're kind of thought of, like, Frank Herbert, the author of the Dune novels, is kind of thought of as like a writer who's interested in like psychedelics, and
Yeah.
that's really sort of like what the books become, is they become, like, characters like turn into worms, and it's just
Oh,
like
wow.
it's really it gets really wild, and
Yeah. Have
you know,
you watched that series on HBO
so I
on
was gonna
that?
ask you that. I have not
Oh, I
watched the
haven't
series on
either.
HBO.
Yeah.
I've heard it's good. I'm
Yeah.
not, we can talk about it more when we get into, like, the TV
Mhm.
conversation, but, I haven't watched a ton of TV
Yeah.
this year. There's a handful of shows that I really liked, but I haven't watched a lot of TV, and I just sort of, like, missed the Dune series. I mean, missed it is I mean, it's there for me, I guess,
Yeah.
whenever I wanna watch it, but, didn't
Yeah,
get
I thought it was kinda weird. I mean, I understand they're wanting to, maybe just continue the suspense with Dune and in between movies, but I also felt like we normally see this when a series is ended, and then
Mhm.
a show can kinda come out. But yeah, it's weird that the movies are ongoing and then there's the TV show. It's a little strange.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the way the books are written is, there's, like, all this, like, history of this, like,
Okay.
this world. So, like, they could do, like, a dozen TV shows
Yeah.
on, like, every different, kind of, like,
Yeah.
group of characters, and, like, just chart their entire, family history, and
Okay.
there's a lot of
Yeah.
opportunity there.
Well, and I
It's a
think
big IP property.
yeah, yeah, and I think if you're like, yeah, a major Dune fan, like this is the show for you. To me, I appreciate the movies and I like them for what they are, and I don't necessarily need to know the history and kind of learn the backstory of some of the other characters, but I can appreciate that they have this out there for those fans.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, Dune 2 was so good. I actually haven't watched it in a little bit. I might have to add it to my list over break to watch again.
I revisited it maybe like a month or so ago. It
Oh,
holds up really well.
yeah.
For a movie that's such a big kind of like spectacle, it actually like
Hmm.
plays just fine at home.
Yeah.
Which I think is like that's how you've got like a really durable kind of like classic on your hands, is when
Yeah.
it works in like the biggest IMAX theater, and it works in your room.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Did you get a Dune popcorn bucket when you
No,
saw?
sadly.
Yeah,
No,
we know we
didn't
have
get
The Office.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Blake Mallin's, popcorn bucket. Listen to our time on screen if you haven't,
Yeah.
because Blake Malin, sings the Dune theme.
Mhm. It's pretty
So it's
amazing.
yeah, it's pretty good. Watch the movie and then listen to the podcast, to fully absorb that, vocal performance.
Yeah. Alright, well, so I already kinda gave my number 2, so what is your number 2, movie?
My number 2 is, Challengers, by, Luca Guadagnino.
Yeah.
If you had told me at the beginning of the year, that I'd have 2 movies starring Zendaya on my my top 5, I would have said, I mean, well, that's fine. I like Zendaya, but, like,
Yeah.
that's a little bit surprising, but, I mean, I just love Challengers, and this was another,
Yeah.
like, great movie theater experience, seeing this
Yeah, I
at
missed out
giant.
on that one.
Yeah, it was, like, in IMAX with, like, the, like, blaring sound.
Mhm.
It was so good. I really think that, like, the score is kind of, like, key to, like, getting this movie. It's a Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross score. I think it's probably like one of the best things they've ever done. It's
Yeah.
basically just like wall to wall house music, and like I'm not like a
Mhm.
house music or like dance music aficionado or anything, but like it really like sets the right tone
Yeah.
for this movie, which is kind of like has the bones of a sports movie, but it's also a romance and like a
Mhm.
um, it's um, it's just great. Like it has these like fantastic characters. Josh O'Connor plays this like all time scumball kind of like
Yeah.
character. It's just like so fun to watch.
Mhm.
I love the script is really ingenious, the way it kind of like goes back and forth in time, and the way
Yeah.
that you learn about like the situations that these characters are in
Yeah.
kind of gradually. I really liked that. Yeah, I thought Challengers was like a really exhilarating kind of like movie theater experience, and I've watched it a couple times at home too, and it stayed with me. It's really great.
Yeah, I've only seen it once. I did not watch it in theaters. It's in my honorable mentions. It was a hot summer movie, and I think like it honestly took me back to like maybe late '90s, early 2000s, where we had these sort of like sport movies that there was like
Hmm.
romance, and it's just a fun watch. Yeah, it's just a really fun watch for adults, I would say, obviously. But yeah, I thought it was a fun movie
Yeah,
for
it's so
sure.
much fun.
Yeah,
It's kind of like an adrenaline
yeah,
rush from start to finish. Yeah, really, just really fantastic.
yeah. Pacing
I
was
highly,
good.
highly recommend
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Are we at your number one
I think
already?
so.
Okay.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
here.
What's your number one?
All right, so my number 1 is Conclave.
Yeah.
This is a movie starring Ray Fine. He plays Cardinal Lawrence. He's tasked with one of the world's most secretive and ancient events, and that is selecting a new pope.
Yeah.
Which I admit I didn't know a ton about and learned a lot in this movie. But he's surrounded by obviously other religious leaders in the Vatican, and they uncover a trail of secrets, which is really fun. This movie, like, really took me back. I think this is like old school movie making,
Yes.
filmmaking, and it felt like just a really good movie. And we also have Stanley Tucci. The cast list: Isabella Rossellini, John Lithgow. There's a huge cast. It is so thrilling. I was on the edge of my seat, and I saw this in theater the entire movie, and completely surprised by the ending. Did not absolutely see that coming. I don't
It
know
has a
how you felt.
completely like out of nowhere twist. Like you would have to. There's no way to predict the
No,
twist in
no,
this
not at
movie.
all, not
Yeah.
at all, but, man, they get you from the beginning, from the start of the movie. It's so dark, and, it's also a beautifully filmed like, I it's one of those movies, like, similar to Dune, that you can just screen grab any scene, and
Hmm.
it's beautiful. Um I'm curious if, like, the Vatican is actually like that. It's some of the concrete walls and marble. It's like, is it that nice? I don't know.
I mean, I think the
Um,
Vatican is probably like very, very nice. Like,
yeah.
famously, the Catholic Church has a lot of money,
Yeah, and
and
they had a lot of thoughts to say about this movie.
yeah,
I was reading some of their reviews, which I just put aside. Look, I'm not a hugely religious person, but taking this movie at face value as a thriller, it's really, really good.
yeah. I think that's how you have to look at it. It
Mhm.
is a thriller. It's not a movie. It's not about the Catholic Church. It's not
Yeah.
about like religion. Like this could be the thing I love about this movie is that like this could be set in the U.S. Senate.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
it's a political thriller. It
Yeah.
feels like a John Grisham movie in a
Yeah.
lot of ways. They happen to be cardinals selecting the
Mhm.
Pope. And the thing I love about the movie is that it is a throwback to those sorts of like 90s sort of like
Yeah. Da
legal
Vinci
thrillers or something like
Code, yeah, kind of
yeah.
vibe.
There's something like almost like I'll say this in a nice way. Like it's there's something almost trashy about it in like the
Yeah.
way in like the
Mhm.
storytelling. It's like it feels like um almost like movie of the week, but like very
Yeah.
elevated.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I love that. Like
Yeah.
the performances are great. I think so. I saw this movie in the theater as well, and I saw it, my beloved Red River Theater, like right next door.
Yeah.
And they have, I think, sometimes an older clientele, and I was probably one of the younger people in this screening. And I think they did not get the movie they were expecting. I think they were
Yeah.
expecting because the trailers make this seem like a straightforward kind of like drama about the
Yeah.
Catholic Church, and
Mhm.
it's not really that.
Yeah.
It's a lot more kind of, it's just more of like a pulpy thriller,
Yeah.
which I think is to its credit. Yeah, the Stanley Tucci performance is the one that, like, really
So
stood
good.
out for me. He's so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I love him in everything. He can do no wrong.
Yeah. It has a great score too,
Yes,
one of the
yes.
most memorable scores of the year.
Yeah, and,
Just
I was just thinking too, I'm not really familiar, Edward Berger was the director here, and I'm actually not familiar with anything else that he's done. I actually have to oh, he did All Quiet on the Western Front. Okay.
yeah, which that
There's a few
movie,
movies I'm familiar with.
I did not like his version of All Quiet on the Western
Yeah.
Front, so I was, like, a little kinda
Hesitant.
apprehensive about, this movie, 'cause I just didn't that movie just didn't work for me, and it
Yeah.
got a lot of Academy Awards attention, it got a bunch of nominations. I think he's gonna get a lot of nominations for this. I actually think Conclave might be the front runner for Best Picture
You think so?
right now.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it might be. I think it's Conclave, Wicked, or the movie I have at number 1, which I think are all kind of, like,
Yeah.
jockeying for number 1, in the, like, kind of Best Picture power rankings this year. But I
Yeah.
think I'd probably give it to Conclave at this point, just in terms of, like, betting odds, just because it's a little bit more of a traditional kinda, like,
Yeah.
straightforward, um,
Yeah, I think
movie.
the
But
performances were really, really strong from everyone in that film too.
yeah, no, it's really, that's a really good pick.
Yeah.
Really, really enjoyed Conclave. Um,
What's yours? What's your number
my
1?
my number 1 is Anora,
Oh,
Sean
yeah.
Baker's Palme d'Or winning triumph, Anora. I've
Yeah.
been a Sean Baker fan for a long time. He's this kind of like, quintessential, like, independent American filmmaker. His movies are, like, very highly praised, but not
Mhm.
necessarily always, like, often seen,
Mhm.
by people. But he's kind of sort of like risen in the ranks, and we've sort of been expecting something big from him for a while. And this movie, just was a huge hit at Cannes, and was a kind of
Mhm.
immediately, kind of dubbed, like, Best Picture front runner. And
Yeah.
Mikey Madison's performance was immediately sort of like, um, just like immediately praised, because she's so good in it. But this is a movie for those who haven't, seen it or are not familiar. Mikey Madison plays a sex worker, a stripper and prostitute, who gets involved with the son of a Russian oligarch.
Yeah.
And it is just a really perceptive movie about, like, class in
Yeah.
America. And that's, like, what Sean Baker's specialty is. His movies are about working class people, and their struggles, and how they try to get ahead and often fail. And that's kind of, all part of what this movie is. It's just on, like, a much bigger scale than anything Sean Baker's done
Yeah.
before. And it's just really exciting to see him work with what I imagine was a significantly larger budget than he's ever had, a much more complicated film than he's ever made. And this movie really kind of, like, takes you through the ringer. It has just kind of like an exhilarating, almost Challengers like sort of like opening
Really?
act,
Okay.
where you're kind of like thrust into this world, and it's a big party, and everyone's going up, and everything's fun. And
Mm.
then, as things do, they take a turn. And you see Mikey Madison's character, Annie, Honora, kind of like deal with some, like, very challenging situations
Oh,
that,
wow, okay.
like, she puts herself in, but then has to kind of like,
Yeah.
navigate. And it's just a really fascinating film. Great, like I said, great Mikey Madison performance at the center of it. Um,
This
and
one's
Yeah,
it's on my list.
it's great. Highly recommend it. I rewatched it, a few nights ago. I never do this. I never buy the VOD for, like, 20 or $25 or
Yeah.
whatever. I went to rent it or catch it on streaming. But I wanted to rewatch this so badly that I bought it. I saw
Yeah.
it in theaters and really loved it. And but I thought it was important to rewatch it as I was, making the list. And it holds
Yeah.
up, really remarkably well. It's maybe even better the second time through, because
Oh,
you kind
cool.
of, like, have an understanding of, like, where these characters are heading, and it kind of, like,
Yeah.
makes the drama a little bit more meaningful. And this movie has, like, an all-time, like, kind of like gut punch ending. It's like it's
Mm.
really, I remember sitting in the theater just kind of, like unable to, like, move, like, when this movie
Okay.
ended. It was like, it's very
Wow.
powerful. And
Interesting,
like,
okay.
my highest recommendation for Nora. It's
Yeah.
great.
No, I've heard so much buzz about this. This is one that I was gonna try to watch this weekend too, and just didn't have the time for. At several on the list, but yeah, hopefully during the Christmas break, I'll get to watch it.
Yeah, it's worth shelling out the $20 for to own it on
Yeah,
VOD in my opinion.
yeah.
It's fantastic. So yeah, those are my top
We
5
covered a lot of
of the
movies
year. Yeah.
between the two of
There's a
us.
bunch of stuff I haven't seen. I have to say, like, I want to
Yeah,
point
me
out, like,
too.
I haven't seen The Brutalist, which
No, I
is
haven't either.
seems like a movie that's kind of like, you know,
Yeah, quickly.
built for my taste,
Yeah,
in a lot of ways. I'm seeing the Bob Dylan biopic in a couple of days as we record. So by the time this podcast is out, I'll have seen it.
yeah,
And there's a bunch of other things like, festival movies that just haven't made their way to Concord, New Hampshire yet because of the aforementioned distribution problems that we're seeing. But
yeah,
yeah, so this is somewhat incomplete. But these are 5, in my
yeah,
opinion,
yeah.
great movies that I really like this year.
Yeah, there was a few that I hadn't watched yet. The Brutalist was on there. I still haven't watched Civil War,
Oh,
sadly.
so
And I know
yeah,
that was
Civil War
pretty
is
pretty
really,
highly rated this year.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I
Civil War's
again,
great.
I'm gonna get. I cannot wait just to sit down and watch a bunch of movies over break. But I have a real pain on my list too.
Mhm.
Um, and oh, Blink Twice. So this was the Zoe Kravitz movie, which has gotten mixed reviews, but it's been talked about so much that I just feel like I gotta watch it to decide for myself. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Christmas break where I can catch up on some of these.
That's the best thing about Christmas break, in my opinion. It's like it's the best week of the year to just
Catch up.
veg out and
Yeah,
watch a ton of movies. That's just
yeah,
usually what I mean, that's basically what I do all the time.
yeah.
But, I don't feel as guilty about it
There's a
over
lot of
Christmas
movies
break.
though. There's a lot of movies to watch this
Yeah,
year.
there's always a lot of good stuff
Do
to
you have
watch this year.
any honorable mentions?
I do. Let me pull up my, pulling up my letterboxed here just to kinda, like, so because I can filter by year. If you have some, if you wanna
Yeah.
go first. What else?
Well, I had challengers on mine,
Okay.
which you talked about when I totally agree with you. I will also say I'm gonna add Twisters to my list. I
Mhm.
thought it was a fun movie. I went in like really I, I went into that movie thinking I was just gonna hate it because I was like, they shouldn't have even made a sequel to this movie. It's ridiculous. I'm not really a huge oh man, I've already forgotten his name now. Um the main character, the main guy from the movie.
Oh, the guy with the truck. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's on
Top
the tip of
Gun
my
guy.
tongue.
It's
Our
Tim
audience knows
Budget.
exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah,
That's fine.
the guy with the punchable face.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of his, but I will say I ended up liking him towards the end of the movie. But no, I've seen this now probably 3 or 4 times. It's a movie I've watched a lot on airplanes, and, I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty entertaining, and I think they did a good job with the sequel. I'm glad that there wasn't this huge connection to the first movie besides maybe a few little mentions here and there. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I really think I would not have liked it, but they sort of made its own. I like Daisy. I'm just forgetting
Daisy
everybody's
Edgar
name today.
Jones.
Yes, yes, I loved her performance. Even though I feel maybe it was a little bleak for her in this movie, but yeah, I thought it was a fun movie. And then speaking of fun, I also have Fall Guy on my list,
I
uh,
haven't seen Fall Guy yet.
which I
I need
I
to check
really
that out.
liked. I loved Fall Guy. I thought it was a great, again, sort of summer movie that did not take itself too seriously. And if you go into it with that mindset, you're gonna enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
Ryan
need to check that
Gosling.
out. That's been on my list for months, and I just haven't, like, gotten around
Yeah,
to seeing it.
I think Kazan, like at you're such a film lover that I think you're really gonna enjoy that movie because there's a lot of throwback and from the music to the scenes to the chases. Like it's just if you're a film lover, like especially old action movies, you'll really
Mhm.
love this one.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I honestly, like, that's what I suspect, and I've been told that, and I like everyone involved with it. I like Emily Blunt and
Yeah,
Ryan Gosling, a lot. So I'm sure I'm sure it's a movie I like. Maybe I'll watch it. Maybe I'll watch it today. Like,
yeah.
this is my last day
Clock out
of
early.
work before. Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
we'll see. It's definitely on my list. I'm just looking through the movies I watched in 2024 that I rated highly on Letterboxd.
Yeah.
The first Omen. Um,
Oh,
Horror movie that came out early in the year, I think in March or April.
forgot about that.
Really solid prequel to The Omen. Um, Really, I really enjoyed that. See. Um, Juror number two,
Oh,
Clint
yeah.
Eastwood's Juror number two, which is now streaming on
Mhm.
Max. You can watch it. This movie, again,
Mm.
I mean, I think the story of the year is like bad distribution. This
Yeah,
movie, Warner Brothers, for whatever reason, just decided like not to put this in theaters.
kinda
It played in like
crazy.
20 theaters or something across the
Yeah.
country, which is a shockingly small number for a very well regarded Clint Eastwood
Mhm.
movie.
Yeah.
It's exactly the kind of movie that you'd think would have like solid word of mouth and like build
Mhm.
up a kind of like a head of steam heading into award season. It still might because there's a story around it now that it's been sort of like ignored by the studio, and I
Oh,
think
really?
people are sort of
Interesting.
like fighting against that because people really like
Yeah.
the movie.
Yeah.
'Cause it's like a similar to Conclave in a lot of ways. It's sort of like an old fashioned sort of throwback
Yeah.
thriller,
I agree.
type movie.
Yeah.
But
Actually forgot about
yeah,
that
I
one.
really, really like Juror number two quite a bit. Um, I liked A Real Pain a lot. A Real Pain would probably be like in my top 10 or maybe like just outside of it.
Yeah.
Another really good movie. Um, let's see here. Oh, Alien Romulus, I thought
Haven't
was
seen it
really,
yet.
yeah, I really liked Alien Romulus. Long Legs would be an honorable mention for me. Twisters would be an honorable mention for me. Um, if you wanna just, like, feel sad, like, in a good way, the Jim Henson Idea Man documentary is a really
Mm.
good watch. One of the better kinda, like, profiles of a, significant figure in our culture. I thought that was a really
Yeah.
good,
Interesting, okay.
documentary. Say again?
So that's interesting.
Yeah, no, it's very good. It kinda, like it reminds me a little bit of that Fred Rogers documentary that came out a few years ago. Just, like, be prepared to, you know like feel sad, about a much beloved person in our from our childhood.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean that's a lot. That's a pretty good. Oh, Love Life's Leading, I thought was really good. I don't know if you
Mm.
saw that. That came out earlier in the year, but again, like played in theaters for like a couple of weeks around me, and was sort of disregarded. Civil War too would be an honorable mention. Um, for me. I really like Civil War.
Yeah.
Um, a movie that I thought was like notably bad, that I just want to say maybe one of the worst movies I've seen in my life is Unfrosted, the Jerry Seinfeld directed movie about Pop
Oh,
Tarts.
did that come out this year?
That came out this year. That's a Netflix movie.
Wow. Wow.
It's terrible. Um, Kind of like bad in a way that like makes me rethink Seinfeld's like legacy. Like,
Ooh,
and
really?
I've been someone who like reveres the Seinfeld show for many, many years. And like seeing that movie made me think, like, is he funny? Like, is he actually like
Mm.
good at comedy? Like, that's how bad it is.
Oof. That sucks.
That gets the worst movie of the year nom for me.
Yeah, I feel like that what's the award that they give? Like, is it a Razzie or
The
something?
Razzies, yes, yeah,
Yeah, I feel like that's gonna be, definitely like a top winner. I didn't watch it because it was rated so terribly,
yeah,
and quite honestly, like, even the trailer looked pretty trashy to me, and yeah, I'm a Seinfeld fan, so I'm glad I didn't watch it.
yeah. Um, Listen, we just named a lot of movies. There's a lot
Yeah.
of, I mean, whatever you, if there was talk of like this being like an off movie year, similar to like watches. You just
Yeah.
gotta like look in the margins.
Mhm.
There's good stuff out there.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of good recommendations here. I want to quickly touch on television a little bit too, because I know
Yeah.
that I think about like good TV in the same way I think about movies. It's a important kind of like art form,
Yeah.
that we consume every day, really. Most of us anyway. I certainly me. What were some of your favorite TV shows of the year, Kat?
Yeah, I was thinking about this and I started making this list and realized quickly that I haven't watched as much TV as I thought I had. But I had Shrinking as sort of my number one favorite show. We had a second season this year, which is very very good. And I quite love the cast and the writing on that show. And then I have, I guess these are all Apple now that I'm looking at. Apple TV really dominated here. Presumed Innocent. This was a Jake
Hmm.
Gyllenhaal, Peter Sarsgaard show. Obviously a remake of a movie with um, what's his name? I'm forgetting Harrison Ford.
Oh yeah,
And It was very good. It was very again, was not seeing the ending there. It was kinda surprising when I thought I had sort of figured it out. I hadn't, and so I really like that. And Sugar was also on my list, which was, a movie that Colin Farrell did this year, and detective show, with a big freaking twist, sort of in the middle
Mhm.
of the series that I was not expecting at all, and also kind of a throwback to kinda old Hollywood and movies, and I really enjoyed the show a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were sort of my top, 3 movies or shows, this year.
Yeah. Um, I want to mention a show I think I've mentioned on the podcast before in another context. Say Nothing, which is a Hulu slash FX miniseries on the conflict in Northern Ireland, is the best thing I saw on TV
Yeah.
this year. If it were a movie, it would like probably be in my top five. Movies list. I was really impressed with it. Just very ambitious. It spans like 50 years, and the Northern
Wow.
Ireland conflict follows a single family and eventually like a pair of sisters, through how they experience the conflict, all based on actual events. And Just really powerful series. So that gets my absolute highest recommendation. I also loved Three Body Problem on Netflix
Yeah.
earlier this year. Um, Based on a very well regarded series of science fiction novels by a Chinese author. Um, Very ambitious project because the novels are quite complex and span a ridiculous amount of time, like literally like billions of years, and
Oh,
so
really?
translating this to TV was always going to be difficult. It did get picked up. I think they're going to do another two seasons, which will
Mm.
kind of like finish like the entire like the adaptation of the whole series. So I'm very curious about how they do that. I imagine like the show in its third season will not look anything like the show in its first season. But a really entertaining first season. Really kind of like smart adaptation. I really enjoyed it. And then Ripley on Netflix, which is
Mm.
sort of like a new
Forgot about
take
that one.
on the Patricia Highsmith novel. Most people are probably familiar with the Townsend Mr. Ripley, the Matt Damon, Jude Law, Gwyneth Paltrow film, was a great film from the '90s. So this is that story in a just told in a very different way, quite a bit darker and grittier,
Yeah.
and it was just very good. So I highly recommend that as well. I didn't watch as much TV this year though as I say I normally do. I feel like there's still a void left from
Yeah.
like Succession,
Mhm.
honestly, which is
Same.
a show that I know you like quite a bit.
Yeah.
There, I didn't have like appointment viewing, on a Sunday, like
Yeah.
throughout the year, the way that
No, I didn't either.
I have in previous years. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm ready to have, like, kind of another show to get into in that way because even the ones I mentioned, I like them, but I watch them very leisurely, kind of like when I want to. It's not like, "Oh, I must sit down and watch this tonight's the night it comes out," type of thing. But, yeah, I don't know, maybe there'll be something good coming up next year. Well, there is a few shows that are actually, um I'm, like, blanking this morning. Oh my gosh. What's the show directed by Ben Stiller, Adam Scott?
Severance. Yeah.
Severance, yeah. That's coming out here in a few weeks, so, I'm pretty excited about that one.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of good stuff both on the movie and TV side in 2025 because
Yeah,
this year I think the conventional wisdom is that it was really impacted by the strikes
yeah, has
last
to.
year, and there just wasn't a lot in production. During I think there was nothing in production during those strikes that could get on the air or in theaters in 2024. So, but
Yeah,
2025 will have caught up, and there's all kinds of cool movies in the works. There's a new Paul Thomas Anderson movie in 2025 that I'm really excited
exciting.
about.
Yeah,
Um, there's lots of cool stuff to kind of look forward to. So,
yeah,
but still, I've been pretty solid year overall. Like I think we both found a lot of good
yeah,
stuff to watch over the
yeah,
course
for
of the
sure.
year. Yeah. Kat, thank you as always for joining me on Time on Screen.
Yeah, this has been
Really fun.
fun.
I love doing the best of list. It's a, I just love a list. It's fun to
Yeah.
make a list and to rank these things. I don't know why, but I so enjoy it. So
Yeah.
really
We'll have
appreciate it.
to we'll have to come back soon and talk Oscars, once we get those nominations in, we'll do our predictions episode.
Oh yeah, for sure. That those predictions come out in January. We'll definitely do an Oscars preview episode. And by that time, I mean, I usually make a commitment to see like as many of those movies as
Yeah, I
we
do
can.
too.
So
Yeah.
maybe we can revise these
Oh,
top
yeah.
five lists
I'll get
if
caught up.
necessary.
I'll
Yeah.
get ca and, what's the movie coming the vampire movie coming out on Christmas Day?
Oh,
Not that
Nosferatu.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna be, like, Oscar nominated, but it's a fun one that I'm looking forward to going and watching.
I mean, as we speak, I have tickets to see Nosferatu, the Bob Dylan movie,
Oh, wow.
and The Brutalist. So like there's these movies like are just kind of like looming
Yeah.
that haven't seen. But
Yeah.
a list must be made, and we had to get it out before the end of the year, and we did it. So it's a victory in my opinion.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks again, Kat, and thank you
Of
everyone
course.
for listening. We will be back with another new episode of Time on Screen soon, and we hope you have a great holiday and New Year, and we'll talk to you again very soon. Take care.